Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to just let a few more people get logged in here and we'll get started. Hope you're all having a good day, enjoying the sunshine. All right. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started then. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. I'm Laura Hamilton. I have a cookbook shop in Fremont called Larder. And a big part of what we do is author talks. And typically we would welcome authors we have a kitchen in our shop, we would serve something from the book, and chat with the author and do a big book signing and things like that. And in these times that we're in, we're just looking to technology to help us still make those connections and celebrate authors and their new books. And I am especially excited today because we are welcoming the author of her very first book, Haile Thomas, and her beautiful new book, Living Lively. Haile is a young entrepreneurial, inspirational, activist author who has written a book that I have to say is like no other in my shop. And I don't want to say too much about it. You might already have your copies in hand, but she's going to talk about it with Olaiya Land. Olaiya is a longtime friend of Larder. She is one of the very first cooking instructors that we welcomed into Larder. And I learned a lot about sort of hospitality and welcoming people from her. She has gone on to found Lioness, which is a really lovely website at wearelioness.com. And we are thrilled to be partnering with her throughout this fall to celebrate new books. And the two of them, Haile and Olaiya, are going to have a conversation for about an hour. They are going to, of course, take questions from you. If you could please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen instead of the chat. You can use the chat to chat with each other, but it'll be easier for me to keep track of the questions if you can just use the QA button. We have copies of Haile's book, of course, available at Larder, booklarder.com. She has very generously agreed to send us some book plates, which are little stickers with her signature that we'll be able to put in the books when we send them to you, so you'll be able to get a signed copy. And I think that's all I needed to cover. So I am going to ask Olaiya and Haile to please join the conversation again, and I am going to step aside. Welcome.
Hi. Hey, everyone. Hi, Haile. How are you?
I'm doing really great. How are you?
I'm well. Awesome. I first want to say I'm so excited to meet you. I have been reading your book this week, and I am just like, wow. Like Laura said, like this is not like, I was like, okay, cookbook. Like there's a lot of amazing cookbooks. I'm like, okay, Laura sent this to me. This is going to be cool. But I have been in your book, and it's just like amazing. So I wanted to start by telling people just a little mini overview, and then I have some questions for you. But the thing that's really awesome about this book is that it's like half, the first part of Living Lively talks about your story, your personal journey towards plant-based living, your story of what you do, and it's full of advice for wellness. And I love that within wellness, you talk about physical, mental, and also emotional wellness, which I think is amazing. And then the second half of the book is plant-based recipes designed to support that wellness. So I just love this format. I think it's so innovative. It's so engaging. So first of all, how did you think of that? Was that your idea? Does that come from the publisher? Like, how did that come about?
No, so this was totally my idea, and it really kind of came together in my life. Like I've been doing health activism for, almost a decade now, and through that journey of solely focusing on food and nutrition for so long, I started to realize just within my own life that there were other areas in my lives that were in my life that was influencing my overall well-being. And it didn't matter how many salads or Buddha bowls I would eat or however healthy I was, if my mind, if I wasn't there mentally or emotionally. And I just started to kind of see that there was this interconnectedness that wasn't really being highlighted in the food space. And just understanding that, all of these elements play into how we operate individually and even how we operate collectively. And so just recognizing that in my own life, I was like, hey, maybe there's something here. Like maybe this is a connection I can make through the youth perspective and for, young people, but also anyone who really resonates with this messaging. And through that, the idea was born. And I'm so grateful that, my publisher, HarperCollins, they were like all for the vision, never tried to like tweak it or water it down or do anything
Wow.
like that. They were really 100% behind it, and that's a big reason why this book is what it is, because they really allowed me to have this like authentic expression of this idea and to really dive fully into it. So yeah, it really came from that.
Okay, that's so amazing. And that means like that tells me, I know a lot. I have a lot of friends who've written cookbooks and they've spent like so much back and forth over the format. And to have your publisher behind you like that, that's amazing. And
Yeah,
the
no.
book has just turned out so beautiful. Really, really lovely. So I would love if you could start by talking a little bit about your story, about your history, like going all the way back to 2008 and how you got kind of started on plant-based living.
Yeah, so I originally got started in my interest in food just through my family. So my parents are both Jamaican, so we've always just really loved food. My mom is an incredible cook, and we've just always kind of been going to like food festivals together as a really little kid. And so through all of that, I've always had an interest in food. But when I was 8, my dad was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and through his diagnosis, my family started learning so much about food and where it comes from, how it grows, reading food labels, and just understanding that connection between, our bodies and how we feel our energy and vitality, and of course, how it connects to or prevents chronic illnesses. So through that journey, we decided to, instead of, going with a medication, to try and reverse his condition just using our lifestyle habits and changing them. And so through about a year-long process, we were able to do completely that, and getting to like see firsthand the power of food and the power of just eating and fueling our bodies with intention was so beautiful. And again, I was like a little kid at the time, so I was blown away and shocked that this information was not provided in school. Like it felt like a foundational element of
Sure.
just being a human and being able to operate at your best potential, at least physically. And so with that, I was so inspired and also like upset and felt kind of betrayed by the entire system and by, not only school, but also all these fast food chains and commercials that were
Mm-hmm.
luring us in and kind of, shifting our mindset towards healthy foods even. And through that, I just wanted to try to do something about it. So my parents were super supportive in helping me find like an organization I could join to possibly learn more and just get involved in my community. And so I had joined the Alliance for a Healthier Generations Youth Advisory Board, and I was like 10 at that time. And then through that, they wanted me to like share my experience with my dad and share more of my story. And through that, I was able to get like speaking opportunities and just kind of domino affected from there, truly. Through sharing my story and just how important it is for young people to be leaders in their lives, starting with what's on their plates, I was able to, like speak all over the country and meet First Lady Michelle Obama and get to work with like, and this is in the first 1 or 2 years of my work, was like working with Hyatt hotels to reinvent their kids menu and make it like super sophisticated and interactive and healthier. And through all of that, opportunities to get my message out there came up. But I started to realize that I really wanted to make more tangible impact in the lives of young people and their families. And that's when I started my nonprofit HAPPY, which stands for Healthy, Active, Positive, Purposeful Youth. And through our programs, we were teaching, nutrition education and culinary education and just how to like have fun with healthy ingredients in the kitchen, and to find ways to make it accessible as well, because we were doing a lot of work in underserved communities. And so we just did a lot of learning and growing in that space. So that's really how it all started. And it's just kind of been going from there for the past like 10 years now.
Okay, that is amazing. First of all, like that you've done so much. You're 19 now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure you hear this, you must be hearing this all day and all night, but it's just, I am so impressed with everything that you've done at the age of 19. At the age of 19, I was a hot mess. So I think it's remarkable that you've
I
done,
have my hot mess moments for sure.
I just am so impressed that you're doing all this work. And that one thing that really comes through in the book is just like what a generous spirit you have. Like, I feel like the book is so giving, like you're doing Selfcare summer camp, right?
Yes, yeah, we just wrapped 2 sessions of self-care summer camp on Zoom with kids like ages 8 to 12. It was so awesome. We were doing affirmation jars and creating something called emotion potions, which are essentially like recipes for how to lift our mood and to be more positive during this time. And so exploring all those activities with the kids was so much fun. And yeah, it's something we're integrating into our programming more permanently now. But yeah.
I think that's amazing. Like, I love everything that you're doing.
Thank
Um, so back to your dad's story, I think the fact that you were able to reverse your dad's type 2 diabetes like in a year as a family, first of all, I love that you did that as a family. Like, that's so powerful and wonderful. But then also that you were able to do that really is a testament to the power of food to heal, which I think is something that people are more or less familiar with.
you.
But one thing that you write about is the power of using food as a foundation for unleashing our highest potential, which I think I hadn't really thought about food so much in that light. And I'm not sure that that's something that people really think about that aspect of food. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more of that and how did that grow out of your experience?
Yeah, well, I started to notice, based on what I would eat, it would kind of shape the ways in which I would show up for myself and others each and every day. So whether that's in like my energy level, my attitude, my mood, or just general like feeling in my body, that really completely shaped how I would operate and just my feelings about myself and all of those things. And so knowing that food is that foundational piece, I mean, that's the first thing that we really learn how to do in terms of nourishing ourselves is like eating food and feeling that joy or feeling deprived or ashamed about it or whatever it may be. There's so many different emotions attached to our plates, culture, memories, good things, bad things, all
Yes.
it can be so much just within eating every day. And so with that, I started to notice it was impacting my mental health or emotional health or just energy in general. And through that, I wanted to kind of explore that a little bit more and really understand like what foods were making me feel my best. And now that I'm more tapped into that, like my body reacts instantly to different foods that just don't align, whether that's like physical effects or mental effects. It could be like just feeling sluggish or not having as much creativity if I do something like eat gluten or even processed sugar. Like my body instantly reacts and I just don't feel the same physically and just in my energetic body. So it's really interesting seeing that. And what I really highlight in Living Lively is just an awareness on that connectedness. I think so many of us prior to this year kind of went through life just going through very fast and not really slowing down to process like, how is this making me feel? How is this impacting me? Whether that's your food or an interaction with someone or something you say to yourself or think about yourself, all of these different things and an emotion we're feeling, we don't really tend to slow down and really process that, even if it's for a few minutes. And so in the book, so much of it is about like actually understanding where you're at right now, what you're feeling in this present moment, or just paying attention to really how things are impacting you. And so that's a big piece of understanding that foundational element of food.
Oh my gosh, so powerful. I think, like you said, so many of us, I mean, prior to this year, but just in general, like people are so busy. There's so many stresses with school, with work, family life. I mean, this year is like exceptionally stressful
Yeah.
that I don't think a skill kids really learn is this connection with their body. I know I didn't. Like, how does this make you feel? Like you're either just like scarfing your food or your parents are making you eat this or that. Or like, I think that's such a valuable skill to have. And I love that you're putting that out there for young people, but just, I mean, that's a skill that I could use, a skill for people of all ages. I think that's super powerful.
Yeah, I mean, even if you think about school, like we were saying, lunchtime is like super rushed in school. I
Oh
remember,
yeah.
no, it was like 5 minutes of lunch, and it just kind of makes you think of food as like this is just the thing I need to check off, like eat, and then you just keep going. But it can be such a sacred thing in a place where you really get to know yourself on a deeper level and be able to nourish yourself in that way. So I love just seeing this messaging, through my book, but also just in general being embraced of this really holistic lens on our wellness and slowing down and being more mindful.
Love it. So in your book, you kind of put that in the context of what you call your 7 points of power. So could you talk a little bit about those? Those are very cool. I love them.
Yeah, thank you. So, the 7 points of power in living lively are essentially 7 different areas in our lives that contribute to our overall well being. So, that includes wellness, our thoughts and mindset, our social media and societal influences, education, world perspective, creativity, and community. I think that's 7. Oh, and wellness. I already said wellness, I think, but there's 7 of them. And I have to like commit it to memory, the order and everything. But yeah, through all of those points of power, it really allows us to just figure out what about our perceptions in all of those areas and even how we've internalized them, what is truly our own. And I think this is so powerful because so many of us, growing up, and I mean, we're always growing up, but especially in those foundational years, those formative years, we're not choosing, what is impacting it.
No.
We're not choosing what to believe or, what to believe about ourselves or others, the world, what we're capable of. All of that is projected onto us. And we're just like sitting there like a sponge and eventually start, internalizing and acting out on those things. And the book really invites everyone through those 7 points of power to recognize what is truly your own thought, your own perception of all of these things, and how you can redefine that. So redefining, what wellness looks like, what success looks like, what joy and fulfillment look like, what your potential looks like. All of these things, once we're aware of this fact, are moldable and things that we can create. It's so amazing once you are aware of this, because I think a lot of people feel maybe it's like too much responsibility, but there's something just so freeing about it, knowing that you truly can be and become anything you want in any present moment in terms of just what you embody and what you work towards. And so that's really what is encouraged in Living Lively. It's just this like compassionate self-reflection that is not too intimidating. You can come back to it if you need to. You can take a break, take a point of power, a week at a time, whatever you need to. The book is very much open for just this customized experience and something that feels very authentic to you and feels right. So it's definitely been designed in a way to make these kind of overwhelming themes or things that might seem a little scary, like, oh my gosh, I'm not in control at all, like of who I am right now, seem just a little bit less intimidating and more like an exploration and an adventure into, our best selves.
Oh, totally. I think you did an amazing job of that. Like the book, it doesn't feel intimidating at all. Like I guess when you step back and look at it, like these are kind of like big, like heavy topics. And this is what I kind of mean. Like I feel like the book like is a little bit sneaky because you're like, oh, it's a beautiful vegan cookbook. Like it's so exciting. And like, but you get into it and it's like it's super interactive. I love that like you have all these prompts for like journaling, for self-reflection that I think is wonderful. And you refer to yourself as a kind of a productive conspiracy theorist, which I
Yeah.
love that. Like you get really kind of deep in here. Like you're talking about how I loved how you talked about how we're born consumers and how as young people, as children, we get all this, we kind of like are sponges to soak up all this information around us from our parents, from teachers, from social media. Oh my God, from social media. I won't even get started on that one. But
Yeah.
how you really encourage people to kind of like think about that and separate and like ask, like to know that you have the power to like look at those messages and think like what of that do I want to absorb and what messages do I want to internalize, like what do I choose. Like
Yeah.
it's so much about choosing, which I think, I mean, that really resonated with me and I love it. And I love that you're putting that message out there for young people. I think it's great.
Thank you. And, I'm just so excited that it's coming out in this time, which, at first it was a book was scheduled to come out in May, and the way that it all played out for it to be delayed was actually in many ways really perfect, because I think that now more than ever, like with so much uncertainty, it's important to feel empowered and feel like you can make these choices, even if it's not to, save the entire world or whatever. It's important for us to realize that in our individual choices, in a way, we're playing our little part in changing the world. When we change our mindset, when we empower ourselves, just kind of floods into everyone and everything else that we interact with. And so that is also one of my favorite parts of the book, is just like dismantling. All the dismantling is so great, because that was such a pivotal part in my life and even in my activism, of just really stepping fully into my truth and being able to share that genuinely and without fear, was really important part. Was just like, why do I feel like, external validation matters so much, or why do I feel like I need to like not talk as much because other people might be uncomfortable? And all of these things just started coming up, throughout my journey, but especially these past 2 years, and have been fully infused into Living Lively. So it's always so interesting how like the most challenging moments in our lives are like the biggest opportunities for that growth, and just recognizing what we truly want and how we truly want to step into, the best version of ourselves.
Yes, 100%. And if there's anything 2020 has shown us, it is that a lot of things need dismantling.
Yeah.
So,
Inner and
so
outer. Oh my goodness.
yes. So I love that, like, starting with self. I mean, the self is always such a powerful place to start. And you write about that, like how, okay, you might feel like, oh, like there's a pandemic on, and like global warming and the political situation, and it can be easy to feel overwhelmed, but you can always start with yourself. You always have agency over yourself. And that energy that you put into yourself, you then radiate back into the world, which I thought was a great message.
Yes.
I also wanted to talk about in Living Lively, in the part of the book where you're talking about your points of power, you do profiles on other young women, like thought leaders who are doing just amazing stuff in the world. And I also thought that was so innovative. And again, like so generous. Like most people, they're writing their cookbook, they're like, look at me, I wrote this amazing cookbook. And here you are, like shining the spotlight out on other young women doing cool stuff. And I love it. And I want to know, like, how did you meet these women? How did you foster those relationships? And why did you decide to put that in your book?
Yeah. Well, there's three young women in there that I've known about their work since I was literally like just getting started. Like since I was 9, they had already been doing their work for like a year. Maya Penn and Gabrielle Jordan. Maya is the last point of power, creativity and community, and then Gabrielle, I think she's like number 5 or 3 or something like that, for education. And so the two of them have been doing just incredible work in the youth empowerment space, entrepreneurship, and I've known about them since I was super young. And so how I met them was just through like, vicariously, it's like seeing what they're doing, and through all that they're doing. And then eventually, like with social media and everything, us actually becoming of age to hop on there, we were able to connect, and it just kind of happened super organically. And then the others, same thing, like through social media, just getting to like see their work and really resonating with everything that they've been posting and what they represent, the work they're doing online and offline, all of that. So I just really wanted to be able to highlight them because they have played a pivotal role in my own self-growth and my own journey of being empowered and inspired by just the unlimited potential that we have and that we can tap into. And they all represent that. They all represent this incredibly strong vulnerability and this incredibly beautiful acceptance of their humanity and their gifts and their light, and just sharing that with the world. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I have an opportunity to like really make this book something that can resonate with, so many different people. And of course, maybe some will connect to my story, but it'll be even more powerful if they can see themselves in all these different manifestations of, an empowered person. And, it's not just my story. I'm not in any way an anomaly. There are so many young people who are just doing incredible things. And I wanted to show that as just, an example of that, that power that we can really tap into. So I was so grateful to have their stories and their wisdom poured into Living Lively, and yeah, just to have them in my life in general. So
I think that's really beautiful. And also a really good example of how, like, the ways that social media can connect us. I know social media can get a really bad rap, and don't get me wrong, I think there are things about social media that can be really difficult, but just the way that it can foster these IRL connections, like beautiful friendships. And also I love the idea of women lifting other women up instead of competing, which can be way too common. So
yeah.
I think it's really awesome.
Absolutely. And even, in your mention of social media, there's a point of power in there on that. And what I always love to say is it's so interesting how like we'll separate ourselves from the entity that is social media as if we don't craft that experience, right? And so a big piece of in Living Lively is like having that power to curate that experience that you have. And I think through even me using social media through more purpose and intention, and really understanding what energy I wanted to cultivate around me, even on this online platform, was a big piece in just attracting these amazing people into my life, and just in my awareness in general and being impacted by them. I mean, even the photographer who took all the like the cover and the lifestyle photos, I met him through Instagram too. So
Oh,
it's
that's awesome.
really so cool how, I don't know, when you just do things with that awareness of just like the power of what you can attract, and the energy you want to keep around you, how it can completely change and curate your social media experience like far better than the algorithm could ever, you know. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I love that. Um, I wanted to ask you about the chapter you talk about in the book, how you kind of had a crisis, a little bit of a like a self-care crisis, how you were struggling at one point, like I think as your career was taking off, like to balance school and work and all these opportunities you were having. And I would love if you could talk about kind of like what that was like and what kind of relationship that led you to have with self-care and what that looks like now. I think that's especially important right now in this moment. Like this year is hard for everyone. And I think people can have a tendency, especially women can have a tendency to think that self-care is kind of selfish. I think
Mhm.
that's ingrained in a lot of women, that they need to be constantly giving, constantly like draining themselves completely. So I would love it if you could talk about your relationship with self-care.
Yes. I feel like it's been it feels like it's been such a long journey, and it's so weird. Like I feel like within our generation we all feel so old, like so much has happened and we know so much, I guess. I feel like we're all having like a beginning life crisis in a lot of ways. Beginning of life crisis. But yeah, when I was in school, like I did physical school throughout middle school, and then homeschool for high school and everything. But I really struggled with like balancing this idea that I like need to sit in a classroom and learn about stuff I don't care about, and like waste my time there and be stressed out about that, and you know, trying to juggle and balance the things that I really am passionate about, and traveling, and the social, you know, dynamics of all of that. And it was definitely a difficult time, and that's why eventually I transitioned to homeschooling. But actually last year was really when that self-care just kind of like slapped me in the face, like, hello, you really need to do this. And it's so interesting to me that last year would be the year that happened, because I was putting together Living Lively all last year and writing it and really tying everything together. And when I got to like the part about, you know, mental health and self-care and prioritizing that, at first I was like, like I've not really had too many experiences with like crippling mental health issues or anything that was super challenging that I didn't get over in a few days. And like maybe a couple weeks after that, I started to experience some serious issues
Mhm.
in that space, of just being extremely overwhelmed by like all the deadlines with the book and everything that were constantly like, you know, that was a constant thing that I was thinking about, and then edits coming back all the time. But on top of that, I had traveled to like 5 or 6 different countries last year
Oh,
for
wow.
different speaking engagements and running nonprofit stuff. And so it was so crazy, and I was not at all prioritizing my self-care, and I made, you know, all these other things 1000% the priority. And I am very much like, I can be a perfectionist in a lot of ways, and so I'll push
Mhm.
myself to like make sure this is perfect and make sure, you know, everyone gets what they need when they need it, and like I'll be fine later type of thing. I can get into that if I don't, you know, pay attention. And that's exactly what happened. And I really, unfortunately, dug myself in a hole that was pretty dark, and it was so strange because I had never really experienced something like that fully. And for a few months, I was just not feeling like myself at all. And
Mhm.
through that experience, I was actually able to develop a tool that not only got me out of that place, but also is a big part of living lively now, which is the GTPT list, which is grateful to prioritize today is what it stands for. And essentially it's like a reimagining of a to-do list, because I found that all of my overwhelm was coming from like this, what felt like a never ending to-do list, and just being incapable of ever like accomplishing those things. And like I said, I can be very much like check the box oriented. And so I had to find a way to incorporate my self-care into that type of system, and really stop thinking of my to-do list as something I have to do, but rather something that I am so grateful to do, and something that is growing my dreams. Because everything that I do, I mean, I'm so lucky that it's centered on something I care about and something that I'm really passionate about and fulfills me. But with like anything, you know, you can get overwhelmed and stressed out by it if you don't really stay centered. So that tool is in Living Lively now, and that's what I used for like a few months to really help center myself and remind myself every single day that I am the priority first and foremost, my health and my well-being in all facets. And so through that, I was really able to drive that home, and that was a really beautiful thing. And I'm so excited to see how the tool helps other people as well, because it was a pivotal moment of just adjusting my mindset surrounding all of that.
I think that's really powerful. An example of how like it's kind of almost like a challenge to the universe. You're
Yeah,
like, oh, I never really had to deal with this before. And all of a sudden she's like, okay.
exactly. Yeah, I got
um,
exactly what I needed to write that section.
but that's perfect. I mean, sometimes it works out like that. And I think I love I mean, there's a lot of talk about gratitude on the internet, and this whole attitude of gratitude, like we hear it so much that it's become like almost a cliche. It just like goes over our heads. We're like, okay, yeah, we know we're supposed to have gratitude. But I love this idea of transforming like a really everyday, making it part of your routine and taking the time to be like, I'm lucky to be here. Like, you know,
Yeah.
we have our challenging days, but I get to do this. I'm alive. I'm like eating these beautiful foods. I have these friends. I'm doing meaningful work, or whatever it is, to like really build that in as kind of a practice, I think is really fantastic. I'm going to be doing that myself. So
Oh yeah, I can't wait to
I'm
see how
going to,
it goes.
yeah, I'm going to be using your list. Um, let's see, what else do I want to talk about? Okay, let's get a little bit into the food portion of the book, because it is also a cookbook. So like I am not a vegan, like even a little bit. And
I'm happy
that
to do
I love that but you really don't have to be a vegan to appreciate this book at all. So I really want to point that out to everybody who's watching. And I really love the way that you approach that you really make that very clear, that you talk about like just increasing the amount of plants that you eat is beneficial towards you, that's beneficial for people. So like kind of who did you have in mind when you wrote this book, like the food portion, like, or
that.
what is your take on like plant-based living in general, like as a lifestyle?
Yeah. When writing the food portion of the book, what I immediately had in mind was just making it approachable and non-intimidating and non-judgmental, because this is something that is rampant in the vegan community, unfortunately, is kind of this perception that like people who aren't vegan are, you know, it's so much, but you know, that
Oh my God,
they're, you
yes.
know, evil or whatever. I don't know. There's a lot of beliefs that, you know, those people are just horrible and don't care about anybody and da 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 da. And you know, if I had learned about veganism through that being spewed at me, it would have absolutely not happened. And so what I wanted this book for the recipe portion to be is just an entry point to learn about it, to explore it, to have fun with it, instead of this like pressure and judgment and like, you know, looking down on people for the lifestyle that they have or what works for them. And you know, I will always promote plants, like it's worked for me and my family, and it makes me feel good and it makes lots of people feel good. But you know, whatever you're comfortable with exploring, like that's amazing and so beneficial, you know, for our bodies, for the animals, for environment, all of that. And I just want people to feel good in their journey, no matter where they're on, you know, no matter where they're at on that journey. So That's really the perspective that I wrote it from, so that it's, of course, appealing to vegans. They're already on the boat, and vegetarians as well, but for it to also just feel like an exploration for those who are transitioning or not at all and just want to, explore something new. So yeah, I definitely wanted it to just be very chill and feel approachable, just because of that perception. The perception that you're gonna lose your culture, or that it's going to taste like nothing, or be inaccessible. And so I really tried my best to make all of those things, be debunked, and just to have it be like this fun exploration for everyone.
Yes, and speaking of accessibility, like I also, so you call out, I love that you call out that, hey, this book isn't just for vegans, it's not just for vegetarians, pescatarians. I also love out that you specifically call out that like plant-based lifestyle, or incorporating more plants into your diet, isn't also just for white people or people who are financially privileged. And I thought that was really powerful, because one thing, like actually, to be perfectly honest, when Lara reached out to me to do this interview, I was like, vegan, like, I don't know, I'm not vegan, like, I don't know if I'm down with that. But because I think veganism kind of can be stigmatized, when I think of like vegan cookbook authors or vegan bloggers, I often think of privileged white women who kind of do some gatekeeping around health, like what is healthy and what isn't healthy. And it was kind of off putting. So I love that you're a voice out there speaking specifically to that. And I wonder, like, what has been your experience with kind of inclusivity in the vegan community?
um, it's been very interesting. I would say most of it has been very positive, which I'm grateful for, but I've definitely had my encounters. And I think what's been the most interesting thing in the vegan community is kind of seeing this lack of openness to the many different things that are interconnected to veganism, and what even makes approaching a vegan lifestyle possible or easier. All those barriers that may be in the way for people who look like me, or who don't necessarily make a lot of money, whatever it may be. There's like this it's like a blindness to all physical realities, and things that may be barriers for people. And of course you can make it work on a budget for sure, but it's not going to be like as fun as some other things, like trying specialty products and all the fancy cheeses and everything like that made out of cashews and blue magic and all those things. But yeah, I've definitely experienced that. Like, for instance, I was featured on something a few months ago that was like highlighting Black vegans who are, like the future of veganism. And the comments on it were insane. It's like, why does this have to be about race? And, why can't we just uplift all vegan people? And I'm like, you only say that if you are the default, and if you're not used to that default being shifted, and that narrative being expanded. And what I am really just trying to encourage and share within that vegan space is that the representation of different people and cultures and all those things is actually what veganism and the future of it is riding on, is this ability for it to be something that all people can relate to, and that gatekeeping is no longer there, and that it feels accessible, both like with money and all of those things, and actually accessibility, but also through culture and through getting to see yourself represented as someone who can have a certain body type and be vegan, or have a certain come from a certain demographic and be vegan. All of those things matter so much, and just show us what's possible. So I'm remain calling myself a vegan, because I want to really disrupt this space and redefine what that looks like, and show people that it's just simply like you're just realigning yourself to different values, eating a different way, whatever it may be. But it doesn't at all make me better than anyone else. It's just what works for me and my journey. And it's important for all people to feel like they can explore this without this certain stereotype being projected as the default and the only thing that's possible. And even with plant-based eating, there are so many incredible indigenous roots connected to it, so it's almost like a reclamation as well, which is really exciting too.
Yeah, I love it. For me, it's very powerful to see a young Black woman like writing on veganism and like taking up space and like putting alternate perspectives out there. I love that in the cookbook you include some recipes kind of from your Jamaican heritage, which I thought was really cool. And I love that you also speak specifically like to people who might be cooking on a budget to make it more accessible. I think that's super important and something that I don't often see in cookbooks or especially in the vegan sphere. So I think that was really, really great. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to, so in the process of writing the book, what was the most challenging piece? Like kind of behind the scenes, what was the hardest part for you?
um, I think, huh, the most challenging piece, I think it would be like, I think just the whole thing of navigating something so new. Like have been very comfortable with writing for a really long time and have been just strengthening that like through fiction, nonfiction, journaling, all those things. It's just been a form of expression that I've been really comfortable with my whole life. But I think kind of putting it into this deadline box and like trying to get the creativity to like come out at certain times and being just cognizant of that deadline was something that was a challenge for me for sure. So at certain points I was like, oh snap, I need to get on this and like force the creativity or something, and had to find ways to get inspired and everything. But that was definitely an interesting experience. And then of course like shooting the food photos, that was a really interesting experience. And doing that, like I have one of my friends help me. He's like also does food photography and everything, and we had to like set up a whole basically like 2-week long food photo shoot in my house.
Did you shoot the food yourself?
Yeah, me and my
Oh
friend
wow.
shot it together. So we were doing styling and getting props, and then recipe testing, having to make things like 500 times. It was definitely just all of that I was not used to at all, because that's just not normal process for me. And so getting to adjust to that and organize everything and just feel on top of it was definitely a challenge. And then like I had mentioned before, just managing that on top of all the other things I was doing, it was crazy, but I made
Sounds
it
like a
through, and I
lot.
definitely know what my limit is now. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Would you do it again?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I would do it again for sure. But I definitely have like, best practices now and boundaries that I know I would need to set in order to just make it um, better for me, but as a human being. But at the same time, it was mostly such a beautiful experience, and an experience that allowed me to grow so much, as an individual. And lots of love and dancing and good energy was poured into that book. So none of the stress I'm talking about.
That brings me to my next question, which was what was your favorite part about making this cookbook?
Oh gosh. I think my favorite part was just like when everything started coming together. Like for so long it was many like separate ideas, and I think the process of like connecting everything and like looping back to certain concepts and then bridging the gap between the 7 points of power and the food recipes, like that was super fun and just a deeply creative process. And getting to do that was a joy for sure. And then interviewing all the young women, like just being inspired by and energized by them was so great, and something I'm so grateful for. So yeah, that whole process was just really beautiful. And um, I had documented like the whole writing process and just seeing, everything that had impacted it. And all, like I said, I was dancing all the time around the manuscript, and just really being intentional throughout the whole process was so cool. And knowing I'm infusing this energy in has been really great. And actually, these past few days, I've been getting messages of people saying like they get really emotional, like opening the book, and it just makes me feel so happy, because that all that energy that was poured into it is being received in a lot of ways. And just to see that joy is so cool. And yeah,
Oh,
it's really
absolutely,
amazing.
absolutely. You can 100% feel that energy in the book, girl. Like I was getting emotional reading the book. I was like, oh, this young woman is doing these amazing things. Like it's for real. That energy is in there. Like you can feel it.
Thank you.
So we have a little bit more time. So I wanted to read a quote from the book here really quick. This is one of my favorite quotes from the book. You write that eating more plants or being fully plant powered is not about perfection or deprivation. It's about exploring real whole foods, getting nourished, creating a better relationship and connection with our bodies, and paying attention to what we eat and how it makes us feel mentally, emotionally, and physical. And first of all, there are just like so many things to love in that sentence. But maybe what I love the most about this and about the book is your message of nourishing ourselves. Because I think young people, especially young women, need to hear this message of nourishing over deprivation. With social media and the dynamics of high school and peer pressure and college, I think there's a lot of pressure to look a certain way when we're in our teens and early 20s. And I find it really powerful to hear somebody putting out there a message of nourishing instead of like fitting into these artificial and unattainable standards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know the book has only been out in the world a little bit, but you're putting your message out there on social media. So like, what kind of feedback do you get from women, or how do you kind of like navigate through that space, or what has been your experience with this, like emphasizing nourishing yourself over looking like X, social media influencer or this perfect way, or what kind of feedback have you gotten around that?
Yeah. I think what has been really cool to see is just how people feel um, very much like safe in the space that I create, and that's such an honor for me. Like, I could literally start crying about just the feedback that I've been getting, these past few years, but especially these past few months, as I've really just tried to show up in a way that's comforting and provides just an opportunity for people to feel loved and appreciated for all they are and where they're at in their lives. And so having people tell me that they're feeling inspired or just better about themselves through reading my posts, or that they can relate to an experience that I'm having, and are happy that I spoke about it, because it feels like in a way they're speaking up for themselves too. Like, that's such a special feeling. And yeah, I've just seen so much growth within my community and within myself, and then the fact that we're all in it together is such a beautiful thing. And I feel really proud to be just out in the world as my full self. Like, I am in no way like the beauty standard or whatever. Like, that's not me at all, and I don't want to be that. I am myself, and I think that it's really cool to see so many others feel more comfortable in being their full selves, and just shining brightly in that position, because they were inspired by my story or a post that I did, or just simply like the conversations that we have. Yeah, I think that's just, yeah, it's such a surreal and awesome thing to do, and they empower and inspire me just as much as maybe I do for them. So it's cool to have that type of relationship with people that like I may never meet. It's so weird, but it's a really cool and beautiful thing.
No, but so powerful and so beautiful. And you talk about like not being like a whatever, like a stereotypical like standard of beauty, but girl, you are extremely beautiful both inside and out. And it's just wonderful to hear you putting this message out there. I just think that so much of what is in the book, and it was totally unexpected for me, is so needed right now, um, for women, like for young women. Oh, and that's one thing I wanted to talk about also. Like, I don't think personally that this book is just for young people. I talked about it on Instagram today, that like maybe people see like, oh, 19-year-old author, and there's a picture of you on the cover. They think, oh, this is just for young people or young cooks. But I don't think that's the case at all. I think that your message is really valuable for anyone. I think it could be especially valuable for parents, trying to get kids, young people interested in eating more healthfully, but also just living more healthfully. I wonder like what have like, are you, as you're doing these author talks, are you interacting mostly with young people? Are you hearing from parents? Who are you hearing from? Who's like into this book so far?
Yeah, it's definitely a mix, and my community in general and just support system in general has always been intergenerational. Like, there's never been a point in time where it's just one group of people solely, and so the book is basically written through that perspective as well, knowing that it's going to resonate with so many different age groups, but also emphasizing the point that we can really redefine the roles of student and teacher. So
Yes.
you can absolutely, I learn a lot from you, and you can learn a lot from me as well. And all of us, we have so much to offer, just through our life experiences and the things that we have overcome and the things that we hope to do and contribute to the world. Like all of those things are so powerful. And, lately I've been saying that there are so many movements within, each of our stories, and being able to share those things just openly and vulnerably is really important, and just helps us kind of recognize this magic within all of us. So I'm excited for older generations to read this book, and to be able to recognize that within me and the other young ladies who are featured, but also then look to their their daughter, their son, their niece, nephew, kid down the street, whatever it is, as someone who is filled with perspectives and opinions and wisdom and all these things that should be valued as well. And in the book I talk so much about also the amazing adult mentors that I've had in my life. And actually for most of my life I've had a lot of friends that are like 15 years older than me. So it's been very interesting that those themes have kind of played out in my life, of just very much having a connection to people on all ranges of all sections of the age range. And that's been really cool. So yeah, it's definitely just for all people who resonate with it, but from a youth perspective, of course.
Yes, it was really compelling, like, to hear you write about kind of like that the student teacher dynamic can flow in both directions. And a really good reminder, I think, once you're not like in your teens or early 20s anymore, like you kind of forget that like ageism can flow both ways. And sometimes people are like, like, what do you know yet? Like, what have you done? But like every age has wisdom to share with people. And for me, that was a really good reminder to think about that. You kind of get disconnected from that as you get older. So I love that.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one more question for you before I turn it back to Laura and to question and answer. You ask all of the women that you interview in the book, what does living lively mean to you? So, I've got to ask you if you have to boil it down into like one or two sentences, what does living lively mean for you?
Yeah. Living lively for me is just being with acceptance for all you are and all that you will be. And I think that's something that I've really been able to settle into, especially this year, is this theme of acceptance and just kind of allowing this unfolding and inner growth and all the right things to just fall into place as it should. And so in living lively, I'm being present with each moment. I'm being as grateful and aware as possible, and in doing that I'm already doing my job. I'm doing my best through that. And so I feel like that's really what living lively is all about, is just having this awareness of and love for your journey and where you're at in any present moment, and really being open to all the possibilities that lie in that space.
Okay, really beautiful. Before I turn it back over to Laura, I just want to say thank you. I've loved meeting you. I'm so excited for your book. I'm telling everyone I know they need to buy your book. They need to follow you, support you. I love this message. It's great. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much. No, I love this conversation, and I can't wait to meet in person one day.
Hopefully. Thank you.
Yes.
Right. Got a couple questions here. So Sharon has a couple of food questions. She would like to know what your favorite comfort food is. And she would also like to know what your top 3 protein-full vegan favorites that give you energy and help your stomach feel happy are.
Okay. Go to comfort food. I would say that has to be cheesecake. I love vegan cheesecake. I did love regular cheesecake before, but actually here it is. It's the cashew cheesecake squares in the book. These are so delicious. I just love anything like super rich and creamy and sweet. So that's a go-to comfort food for me for sure. And then top 3 protein-full favorites. That is a loaded question. Let me think. So one of my favorites in the book is nutty sunflower seed bowl, and it's like a spring roll bowl, and it has tempeh, which is full of protein in it, with like this delicious sunflower seed butter sauce, and has like rice noodles and fresh veggies. That's a great one. Always makes my stomach feel like super happy, and taste buds, all that, full experience. Another protein full favorite, I would say, I love my chickpea in the sea sandwich in the book. That is like basically a take on a tuna salad sandwich. And so, of course, chickpeas chock full of protein, and it's really fun to like put dulse and seaweed flakes to give it that fishy flavor. And there's like lemon zest in there, gives it a pop, and that kind of transports me into like my childhood when my mom used to make tuna salad sandwiches for me. So that's a great one. And then I would say last one, I'm gonna say my mom's curry mushroom, my mushroom or my mom's mushroom curry recipe, and that's in the book as well. And it has like rice and peas, so it's Jamaican roots, but full of mushrooms as well. And I love that as a protein replacement. So those are some of my favorites, and combo of comforting and energizing with all three.
All right. And then we have another recipe question. What recipe would you suggest someone make first from your book? And is that the same as your favorite? If you have a favorite, what is it?
Oh man, I hate to say it, but I do not like these type of questions because it's so hard. I feel like I have a different favorite every week, so if you hear this anywhere else, it'll probably have a different answer. But I would say right now my favorite. Oh yeah, okay. I've been making this one a lot recently, which is a chickpea quinoa bowl with like harissa dressing. It's like a carrot chickpea quinoa bowl with harissa dressing, and it's so delicious. I love, let me see if I can find it so you can get like a visual, but I love this one so much because it's super simple, but it's also not like a really light salad. It's nice and filling. You have roasted chickpeas in there and the quinoa, and so you just get like a superfood boost. I know it's grainy, but yeah, it's just a really beautiful and lively salad, I would say, and I really love that one. And I've been making it a lot lately, so that's one of my favorites. But also the strawberry tahini cookies, I love those.
Would you say that's a good kind of first recipe for someone to
Oh,
make too? Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
great. And then we have one more question. So also from Sharon, when you feel afraid, what self-care practices help you engage with your fear and move through it?
Hmm. Um, when I feel afraid, I think the biggest thing that I can do for myself that kind of calms me down is just kind of tuning into the present moment, and identifying if my fear is actually like what I'm afraid of is actually harming me in the present moment, or if it's a fear of something in the future that may not be real at all in my physical reality. So getting to kind of disconnect from that and almost kind of having an overview of how I'm feeling and how big it is in the grand scheme is really important. So even let's say, with this pandemic and everything, I was absolutely petrified up until maybe like 2 months ago. I just kind of let go of that. I realized like I'm doing what I can. My family and I are staying home, and I just need to keep making sure I'm taking care of my health, doing what I can do, and the rest is, out of my control. So really recognizing what's in my power and out of my power is a really great place. But also like understanding that it's okay to feel that fear because it's a lot going on right now, and there's a lot of scary information hitting us 24/7, and in a lot of ways, that feeds into that fear. So understanding it's okay to disconnect from the news every now and then if I need to recenter or whatever it may be, and just know that like the efforts I'm taking right now, that's what's in my control. So I need to focus on that and let everything else go, which is a process, but that helps me a lot.
Yeah. All right. Well, Haley, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know you've had a busy couple days promoting your book, so thank you for taking the time. And Olaiya, thank you so much. It was such a great conversation. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Don't forget you can order the book. Yay. Yeah. And Haley, congratulations again on your first book. I mean, really, you're going to have a hard time, outdoing yourself with the second one.
Oh my gosh. Actually, the other
If
day,
anybody can, you will.
I was sitting there like, oh, I think I got an idea. So we'll see.
See?
how it goes.
All
But
right.
thank you.
Thank you so much. And everyone stay safe and healthy and have a lovely evening. Thank you.